Good morning, gentlemen. It's nice talking to you again. I'm so glad that so many people have written to me that they feel and appreciate my videos. These are just my opinions, and they're not to be taken as a gospel truth. But of course, if I'm giving an opinion, it is based on some factual knowledge. Now we're going to discuss Ukraine. What is happening there? Let's have a look at the genesis of the conflict and then wonder why the Iranian president supported the Russian president on his recent visit to Tehran. What did the Iranian president say? He said if Russia had not intervened in Ukraine, the other side would have done it. Now, what does he mean by the other side? It means NATO. In a way, there is some truth in this. I'll tell you why. Way back when the Soviet Union broke up and relinquished its hold on the East European states, a commitment was made by President Clinton at that time that there would be no expansion of NATO in Eastern Europe. But within 6 years, Clinton forgot about it, and NATO began to expand in eastwards, and they incorporated all the small countries, who are the most chirpy ones shouting here and there: Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, all of them were incorporated into the NATO. The purpose was to ring Russia so that it doesn't rise up for the next 100 years. But there was the factor of Ukraine, and the Americans were keen that Ukraine should be part of NATO also. Once Ukraine was part of NATO, they were very clear they would have a stranglehold over Russia, catch it by the neck. Now, it was what I will say an existentialist crisis for Russia. At that time, Vladimir Putin had to take a stand. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, went to Washington and he was assured by Biden, we want you in NATO. You're going to be our frontline state. What do you mean by frontline state? In fact, it was to be the main state which will oppose Russia. And they forgot that the Ukrainians and the Russian people are the Slav race. They're the same people and they've been together for hundreds of years. Ukraine has been no great power in world history, and it's just basically been part of the Russian Empire. Nobody can deny that. You can use semantics, they had a small kingdom here, they had that, but it's got no meaning. Now the Russians had to react, and they reacted by invading Ukraine. Now that is phase one, I say. And that, from the Russian point of view and the NATO, was a failure. Why it was a failure? I've already discussed it in previous videos because the Russians didn't take this invasion seriously. They thought they'll just walk in like you walk into a drawing room and the Ukrainians will surrender. They didn't anticipate the strong support the Americans were giving. They miscalculated. The Americans, of course, got a licking in Afghanistan and ran away. But here they were supporting Ukraine, though they never put boots on the ground. And they're not going to do it also. Now, I have the latest information coming in that the Americans are going to bolster their strength in Europe from the 60,000 troops to 100,000 troops. These are a matter of numbers because whether you got 60,000 or you got 100,000, not going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. So, what are these troops going to do? They'll just keep on doing some exercises and sleep in the barracks, eat food. Now, coming down to the first part of the invasion, the Ukrainians got the necessary impetus in weaponry and other things from America and England, and they were able to stall the Russian invasion, and Russia finally withdrew. That's the end of phase one. Putin must have been very furious with his generals who misled him. They thought Ukraine will crumble, which it didn't. So there was a rethink, and then the phase two of the offensive began, and this time they started in the eastern region, parts of which in the Donbas region have already been with Russia. Uh, and Russia had already annexed Crimea in 2014, and I think at that time the president was Obama, and then later it was Trump. They agreed. I mean, tacitly agreed. Okay, friend, you taken over. Okay, because Obama didn't want an escalation, and neither did Trump, who in fact was an admirer of Vladimir Putin. Coming to that aspect now, we have seen that the war in the east went the Russian way. If you look at the map, they've occupied almost 30% of the eastern territory, and they are closing into Odisha. They have captured the seaports on the Black Sea, and now there's nothing like a sea coast for Ukraine. Now, that is the fact, and we cannot deny it. Russians have made good headway, and they have been forced, I will say, use the word forced, to use their latest and most terrible weapons. They have been using the hypersonic missiles, they have been using radar guided artillery, they've been using their fighter planes, the Su-35, and in some combats with the F-15, they have been victorious, and they have been bombing the cities of Ukraine, not the civilian population, despite all the propaganda by the West, they are hitting only military targets. Now, some civilians will die, that is collateral damage. And if you remember, when the Americans were bombing North Vietnam, how many hundreds and thousands of Vietnamese civilians died? Did the Americans say, we are attacking civilians? No, they said, we are attacking only the military. This is just collateral damage. So, the same thing here. Russia is not targeting the civilians. And the last hold in the east, which was the steel plant at Mariupol, has been taken over. The so-called Azov fighters, came out now. Almost 3,000 surrendered earlier. Another 500 said we give up, and that is the actual fact. Now, this war has come to a stalemate at the moment, and I say it is phase two. That means phase two has ended with a pause, and the Soviets have said, the Russians, sorry, have said that this is a strategic pause. If that is the case, the question arises, what is the Russian aim? I'm not privy to the thinking of Vladimir Putin, but I will say that though he's a strong man, he is not in the class of Joseph Stalin, and that part has to be accepted. But on his own level, he's pretty okay to oppose the Americans because somebody's got to oppose the Americans. The Chinese are doing it, but they're doing it in a very devious manner because they're having trade relations with America, almost 600 to 700 billion dollars, and Chinese earning billions of dollars from America. But at the same time, they made it clear to America that it would be detente at their terms, Chinese terms. And you can just imagine Nancy Pelosi, the speaker wanted to go to Taiwan, and I think she's going. And the military, the American military, has objected to it. So you can well imagine the element of fear in the American military on a confrontation with China. They don't want it. They know what happened in Vietnam. They got thrashed. Korea, when the Chinese intervened, MacArthur had to run away, throw his troops back. He was in total retreat. And he went into panic, and he went to Truman and said, "Sir, we must drop atomic bombs on China." That's a fact till you were dismissed. So Chinese have created a phobia for the Americans. But they don't have that sort of phobia against Russia because they feel Eastern Europe is their, fiefdom, they can rule over it. And the Eastern European people, in any case, those nations are so small, they got no, what you call, pride. There's no pride in them. They just want to ride piggyback on the American horses and say we are great people. But it doesn't help that way. The only country which was an empire of some standing was the British Empire, and it's been finished from Great Britain to Little Britain now. So, what is the phase three going to be? Will Putin launch another attack? Because my way of thinking is if he agrees for a ceasefire now, his objectives would not have been achieved. Then, what was the use of fighting? His objective was to take over entire Ukraine. And if he's not able to take it, it means he failed. So, as a military commentator, I will say it will be a fruitless campaign in case Putin calls a halt now and agrees to a form of a ceasefire with the present line as a sort of international border. How is it going to help him? The major part of Ukraine would remain an enemy of Russia, and if people like Zelensky continue, they will instigate some problem again later on. So, in my view, either the Russians should not have started the war, and if they have started the war, they have to finish it, and the finish it only means the occupation of Ukraine. Until and unless the Russians can occupy Ukraine, I do not see how this problem can be solved. And this is after my own considered opinion as a man who studied world history and have some standing in the field of military warfare. I remember when we were doing the staff college course, used to carry out stand model exercises. And I was carrying out the same exercises myself in my drawing room, and I have reached the conclusion that there's no other solution. Now, Vladimir Putin has bitten the bullet. That is the thing. He's bitten the bullet. You've done it. Now you've got to follow it up. And follow it up means annihilate Ukraine if Russia wishes this problem to be solved. Because if they can take over Ukraine, it will be a tremendous victory for them. An entire EU, and more particularly the smaller countries of the EU, will be very, very scared. They will be having the element of fear, something like what Alistair MacLean wrote in his famous book, Fear is the Key. That is only possible in case the Russians completely take over Ukraine. There's nothing like a partial victory that you hold a victory parade, I captured Mariupol, I've done this. It's got no meaning. How's it going to help you? What was the point in starting the war, first of all? The point was at that time the aim was to finish up Ukraine. They couldn't do it. And now they have their steamroller is moving very slowly, of course, but I don't think there's a choice with Putin. Or maybe he's bitten off more than he can chew, and he must be realizing that, look, I've been fighting for months, I couldn't do much in Ukraine. I mean, such a massive army with the most modern weaponry. I wonder how they would face in other wars. That's why the Chinese are studying this war very carefully. Let's see what happens. Coming down to the latest position, Joe Biden made a visit to Saudi Arabia and Israel and drew a big zero. The Saudis didn't give him much of flip, didn't do anything what he wanted on the oil or anything. On the contrary, they have gone and said that Russia is an important member of our organization, that is the World Petroleum Organization. While Vladimir Putin made a visit to Iran, and I already quoted the Iranian president saying that if Russia had not started the war, the other side would have done it. So really, it's Hobson's choice. Russia had to start the war. If they hadn't started it, the NATO would have done something worse. And once you have started the war, you have to see that your targets are met, your strategy gains, and Russia is secure. You can't finish it midway and take few cities and say, okay, bye bye, we're having a ceasefire now. No. So I'm not sure what's going to be the Russian thinking in the months to come. And America also is under pressure. The Russians must remember, if the Russian economy is fighting, the Americans are also having a tough time. And more so the countries like Germany. I mean, these are the countries, who were riding piggyback on the cheap Russian oil and gas. They are getting it now, and so they're worried. In any case, I won't lay much stress on Germany or any of the other countries, EU countries, as any big power, military or otherwise. France, I don't think is going to be with NATO. Absolutely. They are going to engage with against Russia. England, yes, but then as I already pointed out in one of my earlier videos, that famous statement by Nikita Khrushchev, first secretary of the Soviet Communist Party, when he had said, all I need is 5 to 6 H bomb, thermonuclear bomb, and the England will be wiped off from the world map. That's a very sobering thought. Harold Macmillan was the prime minister at that time, and he really worried. And John Kennedy had to make a statement that, well, we won't forsake England and all that thing. But these are all statements got no meaning. Because tomorrow the Russians move into Latvia or Estonia. I want to see all these extra troops which have been positioned by the Americans. Are they going to go and enter the battle there? No way. So Putin has his cards. He still has his aces with him. He should play them properly. I wonder if we can see my video and take some lessons. I'm a very small man to give any lesson, but sometimes small people can also give big suggestions. In my view, the Russians have no option but to continue fighting and finish Ukraine. As far as India is concerned, it's very important that we remain on the Russian side. I will come to that in another different video. In the meanwhile, gentlemen, I'll close now and say goodbye. Do like my video, share it, and subscribe to it. And now I close. Jai Hind, glory to India, and God bless to you all.